Okay, so for those of you that are watching the recording, we just had a little bit of an introduction. You can read about our speakers again on our website, but without further ado, let's get started with our first speaker, John Rose. Thank you, John, for joining
Thanks,
us.
I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Argia stated, I work for the Department of Ecology. I have a background in geology. A little bit about, more about my background. After spending 4 years in the Navy, I went off and got my geology degree at the University of Arizona, became a mining geologist for 3 to 4 years, went back to school, got my graduate degree at University of Oregon, and eventually ended up at the University of Washington getting a GIS certification, and then went to go work for the Department of Ecology after working for Snohomish County for a brief period of time. I've always been involved with the Water Resources Program at Department of Ecology. Our mission, as Argia stated, is to maximize the beneficial use of water for humans, while at the same time ensuring that that water remains a sustainable resource. And this is a really tough job because our society has an almost infinite demand for future water. And that's as our population increases, as our technology expands, and yet it is a finite resource. And so one of the things we do is we issue water rights or allocations for water. If somebody or an entity wants to use water in significant amounts, say a municipality or a farming enterprise, they need to acquire a permit for a water right from us. And that allows us to ensure that we don't over allocate our water resources in the various watersheds that exist in Washington state. Sadly enough, some of those watersheds are over allocated because the science of hydrogeology is relatively new. It only reached its maturity in the 1940s. And so, governments tend to oftentimes have to catch up. They're not necessarily as responsive as new information becomes available. And we also use a tool called in-stream flow rules to keep our water resources sustainable. And so we use scientific evidence to determine how much water is necessary to remain in our streams, rivers, and associated groundwater for long-term sustainability. And once we set those flows, those minimum flows for our rivers and streams, any new water rights we issue after that are interruptible. In other words, they can be turned off when those minimum flows are not being met. It's a very tough job. At times, I work in it, as Argia mentioned, in the Skagit River Valley. It's one of the most contentious watersheds in the entire state. The Skagit River supports between 50 to 60% of our Puget Sound and Chinook. And as many of you probably know, that Chinook is the primary water source for our southern resident orca population, which is in serious crisis at this point. So we have growing needs for water, both for humans and for sustainability in that, and it's a very, very contentious issue. I use my scientific knowledge when issuing water rights or transferring water rights to determine whether that's possible given potential environmental impacts. And I also deal with a lot of regulatory and policy issues. My other job is as a part-time member of our spill response team, and I call that my really fun and exciting job. As a part-time member, I'm only working about 1 week every month or so. I'm on duty during after work hours. So I'm actually going on duty tonight. And we can respond to such things as sunken vessels in Puget Sound. They can be either recreational or commercial vessels. Oftentimes it's overturned semi-trucks that are spilling their diesel into our waterways. It might be illicit drug and explosive labs where we're working with other first responders, including law enforcement and fire departments. And it can be at any time during the day or night. So I'm going to be on duty this weekend. My pager might go off at 2 in the morning, and it might be something very routine where all I have to do is have a couple of phone conversations, or it might be something major where we have to actually go out there, ensure that whatever is being released is stopped, what has been released is contained, and then ensure that the environmental impacts or the impacts to human life and health are mitigated to whatever extent we can. One of the things that the Everybody Hacks asked me to also mention is some of my hobbies. So I have quite a wide variety of them. I play the bagpipes, maybe not all that well, but I certainly know how to annoy my neighbors in playing the bagpipes. I'm also a longtime mariner. I kayak, I go out on sailboats, I go out on pleasure or power boats. And I teach navigation to young folks through the Sea Scouts. Sea Scouts are part of the Boy Scouts of America. We teach maritime skills rather than camping and hiking and that sort of stuff. And I think that's about all I want to mention in my conversation, other than to also provide a little bit of advice for those folks who might be willing to or might be interested in getting into the environmental field. If you are, a couple of things that really are important is, first of all, finding out whatever professional licensing you might need. So I'm a licensed geologist, for instance, and really start pursuing that as early as you can. The other thing is get as much field work as you possibly can. Field work is really important. It's an important skill set that you have to make yourself viable in the job market. And by the way, it's also a lot of fun. And then finally, in the natural resource field, having geographic information system skills is really vitally important as well. It's something all of us use. It's really important because everything that we do in the natural resource field has spatial aspects to it. And once again, you can really make yourself much more competitive on the job market if you have that skills under your belt. And with that, I think I'll pass it back to our moderator.
All right, thank you so much, John. It was very interesting to hear from you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Professor Shachi Mittal, and Leah will be telling us a little bit about her.
All right, so Professor Mittal conducts research which integrates engineering with medical science to benefit cancer patients. Her focus is on machine learning and chemical imaging to build efficient, accurate, and clinically relevant diagnostics. All right, so could we give it up for Dr. Mittal?
Yeah, thank you, Leo. Hi, everyone. So I would like to first just give why this initiative caught my eye and I got interested is the two words that Ragya mentioned in the beginning is interdisciplinary and social impact. And these are the two words that has been at the core of throughout my academic journey and also now based on my research in my lab. So I am from India and I was always interested in maths and biology, which was a very unique combination. So I was really confused whether I wanted to pursue engineering or whether I wanted to get a medical degree and do something for the society. And then I came across this field of bioengineering where I felt that I could integrate my passion for engineering technologies and also the bio side of things, which can then be correlated to social impact. So I did my bioengineering degree from Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi and in 2014, and that's when I joined for my PhD at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So during my PhD, actually right after my undergrad, I wanted to become a social entrepreneur because I was really driven by doing something and trying to solve the problems that we see in the society on a daily basis. But then I got an opportunity to do an internship during my undergrad where I started using machine learning and data science for building cancer-related models. And that's when I started getting really passionate about this area as to how can I connect engineering with clinical science. So I focused on using imaging connecting that with machine learning, and working with clinicians to build early cancer detection models. So that is what I did for most of my PhD. But then I wanted to take a step further towards really taking some of these technologies and deploying them in clinics, and to figure out what challenges can we really face when we are trying to translate something into human impact. So that's where in my postdoc, I started working with multiple different clinics to really figure out how the models that we build in labs can really be integrated to clinical labs. And that's where we realized that when you start working with patient samples, the images that you get from one clinic are very different from the ones that you get from the other clinic, and so on and so forth. And that's when I started working on building standardization techniques as to, can we really standardize data that we get from different clinics, and then build models that would be more translatable across different settings. And that's where I was like, okay, I want to have my own lab, train students. And I was really excited about mentorship, because I come from a family where nobody is a professor in any place, right? And nobody has gone even out of India for their career opportunities. So I couldn't get a lot of mentorship directly from people in my family. So I relied on mentors throughout my academic journey. And based on that, I felt that I'm passionate about giving that back to students in the community and providing mentorship so that all the students can realize their dream and wherever I can contribute in their journey. So that's the reason of why I wanted to be a professor. And so I joined UW in 2021 and started my lab, where we are working on building early diagnosis techniques, particularly focused on breast cancer. So how can we build digital assistive technologies which not only help clinics or clinical labs, but also kind of help us to tackle the issue of low resource settings in developing countries. So if you look at global health, one of the biggest issues is that we don't have experts in technologies that are equally top notch at every single facility. And that ends up correlating to a bad outcome for patients in some of those settings. So can we build digital technologies which were optimized in developed settings, but then can easily be translated to developing countries where patients can get that highly reliable care and get that screening diagnosis right from the very beginning? So I'm really passionate about integrating engineering with medical science. So all my students work directly with clinicians, have to learn clinical science. Like I took courses where I tried to become a doctor because I didn't understand any of it. Like I had math, physics, chemistry, all that to my core, but I didn't really understand clinical science. So that's where I think the power of interdisciplinary work is, where I started as a bioengineer, and then I developed skills as a computer scientist, and then I developed skill as a resident doctor, and combined all three to really start being able to communicate with these different people to make something that is a product for human impact. So I think like that's what I would even give in advice, like try to have a very open thought process and what type of training really excites you. And as John even said, like try to do that as early as you can. And there is no bounds to what you do. If you're a chemical engineer, it is not necessary that you're only going to be building reactors. If you are an environmental engineer, it's not necessary that you're only going to be working on environment or water. If you are an electrical engineer, you're not going to be only working on circuits. So I think realizing how different domains in engineering have actually opened up, and it's not just your direct field of study, which will correlate to what you end up doing for the society. It is basically what really makes you passionate, and then can you get training in those individual components that will make you successful towards that goal. Okay. And wherever there are gaps, like we still have, the problem is that we still have gaps in our education that do not allow that interdisciplinary training in a very straightforward manner. Like in my engineering degree throughout, I never had any skill set towards cancer or any of the medical technologies. right? But then just go out, seek that out, whether it is through additional courses, whether it is through online resources, or it is through doing research in labs, both in research labs at the university, in industry, or national labs. Like, try to get that experience so that you can actually have that interdisciplinary thinking, which is going to make you unique in what you do. Like, that is what my advice would be. And my hobbies other than work is exploring nature. So I am a nature lover. I really like hiking and exploring different places. I like music a lot. Mostly I have explored Indian music so far, but I really like music. It helps me relax. And I like gardening as well, which I'm not able to do as much in apartments, but I like gardening as well. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Mittal. That was really interesting to hear from you about the interdisciplinary nature of your work and all of that. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Next up, we have, let me spotlight our next speaker. All right, hi, Melinda. Next
Hi.
up, we have our speaker, Melinda Cohoon. Melinda is specialized in Near and Middle Eastern studies. Ms. Cohoon is a mentor who has unique skills in game studies, social media, and grant writing, and she actively participates in public life by socially elevating others through mentorship. Some of her mentees are deeply marginalized in society, and through her efforts, she is able to teach them the rules of writing in their respective fields and lead them to acquiring coveted spots in study abroad programs, prestigious graduate programs, and much more. Thank you for joining us, Melinda. Let's hear from you.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor. I also wanted to share with you all about my mentorship. I think that is the most salient aspect of what I do beyond research. So I feel truly honored to be speaking among others that do contribute to interdisciplinary studies and research in everyday living. It's fantastic. And I just feel awesome talking among all of you. So I'm gonna really just share with you my journey. At first, I'll tell you a little bit about growing up. I am from Portland, Oregon. I come from a working class family. I'm a first generation student. I have 3 older brothers. I don't know how that's important, but I guess it kind of cultivated me and my resilience as I grew up. I've been married 11 years. I'm a first generation and working class student to this day. So I feel like it has been a tremendous journey just to even come this far in academia. In my spare time, I play video games. So that is also salient to my research. I mostly play World of Warcraft because I don't really have much time for anything else. And that game actually takes a lot of mental thought out of my day, let alone given any other time to any other video games. But my all-time favorite game is actually Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which is just a very, very interesting game because it interweaves expert knowledge with history, even psychosis, so mental health, and it's trying to like invoke empathy in the player. I also enjoy running and hiking, and if I had time, I would actually train for a marathon. I also enjoy watching competitive TV, like Glow Up, and I feel like that's cathartic for me as a graduate student, but I really enjoy Great British Bake Off because it's so wholesome. If I had more spare time, I would also be streaming more on Twitch, which is a gamer streaming platform for leisure esports or competitive esports. I began my college journey at Portland Community College and then eventually matriculated to Portland State University as a history major, becoming a member of the Urban Honors Program and McNair Scholars Program, which is for first generation and low income students. It was also my first opportunity to get a publication. That publication is about Iraqi railroads and oil. So that was a very tremendous opportunity to get that mentorship that I needed to propel myself forward. It did take me 6 years to get my BA. And so I'm just very fortunate that I made my way through. I had to hold down jobs at the same time. I spent an extra year learning just Arabic and honing in on my French skills. I eventually matriculated to the UW MA program in the Jackson School of International Studies, working on a project about Iranian oil during the early 1900s. I think while working on this thesis, I realized my passion for gaming and culture among gamers, because I was a part of a very competitive guild, which is just a kind of predetermined group of people that come together and then want to complete objectives. So I just really felt that my own positionality as a gamer really fostered this interest of mine to eventually go on to my PhD program and study gamers. So I matriculated to the NMES program in 2017. I passed my qualifying exams in 2020, and I've been researching pretty much ever since, and a little bit of writing here or there for the dissertation. My fields consist of Middle East studies with a focus on Iran, digital humanities, internet and information controls, affect cultural studies, media studies, and gamer studies. So what I do is basically interdisciplinary as it can possibly be in social sciences and humanities. My dissertation is entitled Affective Entanglements, Iranian Gamers on Social Media and Online Games. So for my field work, I do a lot of virtual ethnography, which consists of participant observation of gamers in Iran and the diaspora on Twitch streaming platform. And then I conduct semi-structured, unstructured interviews on Discord. For part of this research, I also conducted a collaborative project with another researcher and an undergraduate research assistant. So this was a tremendous opportunity to hone in on my skills, as well as help others kind of achieve their goals. So I also focus on social media platforms as well, and hope to triangulate that data a little more thoroughly over the coming months. And so eventually I'm going to create data visualizations that have more sentiment analysis to enrich my dissertation chapters. This type of research affords me multiple technical skills and research skills. I find pride in the fact that my research allows me to make deep and meaningful connections with people, sometimes without ever seeing them face to face. And this is with participants, broader audiences, as well as undergraduate and graduate students really globally. I have found that this is the most important skill I've gained, that type of interaction, as well as writing. So I try to foster that skill among people when I meet them, especially anyone that wants to go on the job market or looking to get funding. So I would say that my primary goal in life is to mentor others and share the skills that I've gained and have had like a tremendous opportunity to gain throughout my study, especially coming from that kind of background as a first generation student. I think, as Bell Hooks once said, it is vital to sustain ourselves by building communities of resistance, places where we know we are not alone. And I feel like I have developed this community of resistance by sharing my knowledge and getting people to where they need to go. So my undergraduate research assistant, she did achieve many different opportunities throughout that collaborative project in the summer of 2020, but she also went on to get Fulbright. She also went on to get acceptance to the Berkeley German Studies PhD program, which she's been given like this really illustrious like package. I've also helped other students along the way that come from marginalized backgrounds, and that they now get to go on and get funded, and it's been humbling and it has taught me so many things. I'm also very lucky to be mentored as well as be that mentor with these people. And I've done this throughout the coursework I've taught. I've done this online. So I just hope to inspire others to keep on keeping on and not let any like hiccups along the way get them down. So I think that's where my advice is really for people is mostly for the graduate students or undergraduate students that want to continue on in their graduate studies. I feel like it's the most important and ubiquitous advice that I could give, and that is learn to become a better writer. This is what funded me. This is why I've gotten so far in this program and my graduate studies in general. So ask for advice along the way, seek help. Do not let fear of failure get in the way through your studies, through your primary research and the write-up stages of your research. This literally took me years to achieve. I think it's because I'm a little stubborn and think I can do everything on my own. You shouldn't have to do everything on your own. So receiving mentorship is as important as mentoring others. Secondly, I think it's important to cultivate a community of friends and colleagues that truly champion your work and will be a cheerleader on the sidelines and will help you throughout your studies. I feel like this has truly enriched my experience as well as my research. I think that if you're looking to apply to graduate school, get started on those statements of purpose right away, get that advice as soon as possible. The sooner the better, the more feedback you can get, this will also enhance your work. So I just feel like it's also important to express gratitude in the end to these people, these helpers. This will not only make their day, but also create a deeper bond. And these deeper bonds actually propel you forward in your career. It's not just networking, it also deepens and enriches your life. So I also wanted to say thank you all for supporting us speakers. And I wanted to thank my mentors for always believing in me, as well as the institutional supporters such as the NMES program, as well as Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations, and as well as the funders that have propelled this research forward. Thank you to the friends and family that have helped me throughout this process as well. So, because I don't feel like I would be here today without that community of support.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Melinda, for sharing your story with us today. For our last panel speaker for today, we will have Camilo Tobacia. Mr. Tobacia is currently an engineer at Blue Origin. He is a former SpaceX manufacturing engineer with experience in building space crew capsules. Another one of his ventures is Space United, an organization bringing space and soccer to underrepresented communities, where he is a founder and CEO. Please give it up for Camilo Tobacia.
Hey, thank you very much for the introduction. I also brought a few slides, so I was hoping I could share those with the group as I talk. You may be able to provide a little bit of a visual insight. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. All right. I think everybody can see it. Thumbs up, yeah? All right, cool. So yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Camilo Tobacia. As the introduction mentioned, I am a manufacturing engineer for the rocket industry, space industry. I've been in the industry for about 8 years. Started my career at SpaceX for Dragon capsule. I was the manufacturing engineer for the structures, components, cargo racks that eventually made it to the International Space Station. And then currently I'm the manufacturing engineer for the capsule for New Shepard, which is the Blue Origin rocket that takes astronauts to the edge of space. Famously, last year we had our first human flight where our founder Jeff Bezos was on the vehicle. So it's very exciting times. For this presentation, I wanted to share a little bit of how is it that I got to this industry, and the role that also today my hobbies, which is soccer, has played into this organization called Space United, which we founded 8 years ago in Los Angeles and has now expanded to Seattle. And essentially it's taking the passion and love that I had for soccer growing up in South America and how we are applying this connection to this underrepresented community in connecting them with soccer, and then sharing the principles of space exploration and how they too can find themselves in this industry and being a voice for what's gonna become the future of exploration, not just in orbit, but also multiplanetary. So let's get started. Like I mentioned, Space United, former engineer at SpaceX and now at Blue Origin. On the right, I show the New Shepard, which is Blue Origin's rocket. I work on the crew capsules, so that's the top section. And I essentially do all the integration, manufacturing, putting all the blocks of the Legos together to make sure that this capsule is ready for flight. And then on the left, you'll see me and my brother. My brother is also an engineer, and he also works with me at Blue Origin. He started also at SpaceX, so we've been also following each other throughout our career. So it's very fun to work with my brother, and I recommend it if you ever have a chance to stay close to family. But we've had the opportunity to work on really cool technology in space. In the background, you'd see the Falcon 9 with the landing legs deployed. That was the first rocket that went to space and landed autonomously in a barge in the ocean, in the middle of the ocean. So it's now featured just like you see it like that outside the headquarters of SpaceX in California. And so it's a very cool thing to drive by and see the rocket that you worked on and landed. And now everybody can just go by and take photos. It's a monument that now it's a way to share the real great technology that went into that project. I am originally from Colombia, so I was born in South America. For anybody who's not familiar, Colombia is the first country in South America, right below Panama, and neighboring Venezuela, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador. Colombia is a very fun country. It's very rich in cultural backgrounds, music, sports. It's also a country that has a difficult past. Maybe it's no secret how some people in the international world may see Colombia, but I think despite some of those difficult backgrounds that we grew up in, over the years, Colombia has really transformed into a beautiful country to visit, and I encourage anybody to go and visit. It's a beautiful country from all perspectives, food, people, music, and it's, for me, I'm always very proud to showcase my Colombian flag, which you'll see it here in the next slide. Is when I graduated as an aerospace engineer from Texas A&M. I always have the flag showcasing it, and I graduated from a background of engineers. My dad is an engineer, which I know in these conversations we've shared a little bit about the importance of mentoring. For myself and my brothers, our family and our parents were maybe that foundational background that really kept us moving stronger towards education. We were also soccer players, probably first and foremost soccer players when we started. And as we grew up, education really became the forefront, and primarily engineering, because we were very interested in solving problems. But I think it started very early to being confident in mathematics and the very basics. I really had no idea I was going to end up in space, just to start out with that. In Colombia, I could not fathom the idea of space exploration. It was only in the movies. You heard of NASA, of course, but it was something that I never pictured myself in this industry. And I say that just to show that sometimes you don't have to know all the answers that eventually lead you down a path of doing, great technology or great projects. So for us, it started just having confidence and passion for learning. And I think having that confidence in math eventually just led up to us being confident in the next step of education, in school, trying to, excel in academics. And then as we moved on and we moved to the United States, other opportunities opened up. And then eventually just led into space, which once in it, now I can see the great implications that it has for not just what we normally see, like communications or your cell phone working with GPS data, but as we look to the future, how do we make this industry help become the Earth sustainable from energy perspective, from communications perspective, from exploring the moon, other planets for sustainability, and even expansion of civilization. Another cool thing about space is that I get to work near very cool technology, and one of these it was taken at SpaceX, where we filmed the movie Iron Man, which I just show it here because I thought it was really cool. Like I get to go to work and then see some of these things happening around me that when I grew up, I could only see it in the movies, and now I'm getting a chance to see it in person. So I like to share this one because I connect a lot. We connect a lot with Space United at the education level at schools, and just to showcase a little bit of the fun side of some of these projects. So yeah, now we're using Space United to communicate with communities, inspire young minds with space and technology and soccer. So utilizing soccer as a way to connect with communities that are underrepresented in the space industry. Here you see me, and that's my brother actually. So it's 4 of us, and we all jump on this effort to talk to schools, and sometimes in Spanish, and I think it's very valuable when kids see people that look like them and speak like them, and know that they're actually building some of these rockets and technology that are going to be shaping our future. And so yeah, that sort of brings it back to this point to where now we're using our hobbies, and passions that we started with soccer, and now utilizing that as a bridge to get a community closer to space exploration and the opportunities for upwards and uplifting those communities. And I think it's gotten us to this perspective and this point to where now we're working to make this team professional, which would elevate it to a national platform and allow us the opportunity to really share this message with more communities, not just in the US, but also worldwide. Obviously, where soccer plays a big part in the culture, but also as they learn about soccer, they can also learn about opportunities in space and be part of the table that makes those decisions, essentially. Yeah, for us, soccer and space bring the world together. So a few comments here that I would say is, for us, at least what has helped us is embracing the different backgrounds that you can run across as you start thinking about careers, thinking about projects. I think that part is important to learn from each other and from different ideas. Surrounding yourself with people that push you to be better. I think this is also one of the important pillars, that sometimes you don't always need to have the skills to solve XYZ problem, but being surrounded with people that have those skills can also make a positive impact in how you learn to work together as a team, and it provides good experience as well. And then be proud of your past and embrace your future. This one, primarily for us coming from South America, where there was really no resources for STEM or space exploration. But as we now move forward in careers here in the United States, how do we bring back some of these success to communities that we know don't have this opportunity? So being proud of that and bringing it into your close circle and surroundings is important, to not just uplift yourself, but look back and help those that don't have those opportunities. So that's what we're doing. And sort of, I think that brings it together to what I was gonna mention here. One last note: if anybody wants to send a message to space, make sure you connect with us, because we're sending postcards to space on board the New Shepard rocket. So if you'd like to send a message or a drawing of what you imagine the future of space will look like, you can check the template that we have on the website. You can draw the message, and if you connect with us and give it to us, we'll put it on a rocket, and then they will come back with a stamp that it has gone to space and come back to you. So thank you very much. You can find the templates in the website.
Thank you so much, Camilo, for sharing your story and inspiring us today. I would like to thank all the speakers for allowing us to listen to your diverse experiences and stories, and how you all developed over your careers to where you guys are today. We will now be going into an open Q&A where the viewers can send in any questions that they may have for our panelists today. To start off the Q&A, I actually had a quick question. Are there any common misconceptions about your field, and what are they? And this is open to any of the panelists.
maybe I can speak to that a little bit. I think I mentioned it earlier, in which, working in the rocket industry or space, or even in any industry for that matter, there might be that misconception that you have to be a true expert in your field or be like a true know-it-all. But I think for me at least, it has been a gradual growth in understanding skills that take to be in this sort of industry. I think if you get yourself into a position where you are learning through projects that can showcase some of those skills, for example, for an interview, that companies can see parallels of how those skills can apply here, but you don't necessarily have to be a rocket scientist, for example, to join the space. At least that was my case. So I think it's important to get yourself in situations where you're being challenged and then showcase those skills and how they could be used in an industry that you want to get into. So.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I like to add that in my field, there's a belief that engineers cannot communicate with clinicians and clinicians cannot communicate with engineers because they operate with such a different knowledge space. But I think like if you make an effort to really learn that interdisciplinary language, which is very different, where you have to kind of think about that even if you are passionate as an engineer about the data science model that you've developed, an engineer is trying to look for certain words that talk about the patient more. So making an effort to trying and understand the other side and what applications matter to them and what is the terminology that they would be comfortable with, I think that helps to really make that bridge even without you having that doctor degree. So you don't need to be a doctor to do something in the clinical space.
And might I add something? I feel like in an interdisciplinary program, you're almost always expected to find your discipline, which I feel like I've been more successful in having different generalizable knowledges. And from my perspective, it is important to cultivate those relationships outside of your field so that it can truly enrich what you are writing about. And I've just spent my time trying to get away from that academic silo effect where you're just stuck in this like mental space of just a discipline and you barely communicate with others. And I feel that that needs to be broken. And that's why I appreciate this discussion so much. I feel like we're kind of all on the same page in that regard.
Thank you for your all's insightful answers. John had to leave early today. He's on a field visit. So I guess for now, let's move on to the next question. And again, this question is for all three of our panelists. Have you encountered, and some of you guys talked about this already, but if you have anything to add, have you encountered any obstacles in your career path and how did you go about overcoming them?
So I think for me personally, coming from my background and starting at the community college undergraduate stage in an in-state school that wasn't extremely prestigious, I still encountered like a mindset that you can't really continue onward. And I feel like that was an obstacle in my thinking, as well as receiving the mentorship that I truly desired, but wasn't able to attain at that stage of my my undergraduate schooling prior to going to graduate school, which is when I actually received the mentorship that really supported my thoughts and thinking and my continuation. So I feel like sometimes people will come across that just bad mentors, unfortunately, that say, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not going to make it because you didn't get the perfect GRE score. And I feel like that's a trap. Don't let them tell you that and keep plowing forward despite those kinds of naysayers.
Thank you, Melinda.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would like to add, like, So one is really similar to what just Melinda said, which was personal, where being a woman in engineering in the very beginning and trying to do something. So I did my engineering from an institute of technology where no female in my entire family or in the entire community had actually gone there to do engineering because it's a very difficult exam to crack. So kind of just trying to battle the thought processes of people where everybody used to say, oh, you should tell my parents, oh, you should just aim at her probably going to a college nearby to your place because as a girl, she would probably be more successful there. And people talking about, oh, well, I mean, how can she be good at mathematics? She probably, oh, we see how she's good at chemistry, but how can she be so good at math? Right. So I think that, and I'm starting with something very simple, but once I started getting up the ladder, these questions, these thought processes, I came across at many different levels. But what really helped me cross that barrier was to really be comfortable in my own skin and really know what I bring to the table and fighting for that, right? Like how much first believe in myself. How do I work more to actually prove that, no, I am going to do this? When somebody used to tell me she's not going to be good at math, instead of letting that affect my achievements, I would basically ace the test the next week and beat the crap out of everybody and be the top one, right? And just be quiet, and my marks would basically just answer them. And then when people used to say, well, I mean, I don't know if, so when I did my IIT, everybody in my, a lot of people in the community told my parents that if you send her for PhD, she is going to be overqualified and she's not going to get married because she's a woman. So I think that just it's very important to be comfortable and believing in yourself, because no matter what happens, our society is changing, but still we are going to face at these different levels, especially if you come from underrepresented communities, and use all these comments. It's difficult to actually motivate you to cross that barrier, to fly even higher, to answer it with your achievements, and to become even more ambitious rather than thinking that you can do something less. So that's the personal front, and professional is really just the interdisciplinary. When you try to do something interdisciplinary, you have a challenge of building skill set. That's one. But once you've done that, which we talked about today, the other is kind of trying to prove it to the community, your hirers, like what are you an expert on? Okay, so that's where you need to have that focus, where even when you're working in an interdisciplinary space, what is your application and what is your unique strength, and building upon that, because that is when it opens opportunities for you. Yeah, so that would be my 2 cents to it.
Thank you. Our next question would be, what is the most impactful advice that you have received while on your career journey?
Melinda, you spoke a lot about the mentorship that you have received throughout your journey and your career. Would you like to take on this question first?
Sure. I think the most impactful thing that I've learned has actually been in the last year. And I think this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is being willing to be mentored. I think that has helped me tremendously get out of a certain funk with my research. And I think it will propel my career forward. Otherwise, it's just been like people that did not want to give up on me throughout this process over the years. Not necessarily direct mentorship, say, on my writing, but like just supporting me on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis when I'm having an issue, whether that's personal or whether that's with the research or passing the exams. I think just having that community of resistance, that community of unique individuals that come from different backgrounds has helped foster me as a student, as a researcher, more than anything. And I think that has had the most immediate impact. It's not necessarily the exact words someone said, it's the actions.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Mittal or Camilo, would you like to add anything to that question?
Yeah, I can add something that I've learned, I think, now working in this industry in terms of advice. I think one valuable sort of theme that I have learned through this is that, you don't always have all the answers before you can make a decision. And it's important to make a decision as long as you're moving forward, because failure can also be a part of progressing forward. And so I think the saying goes like, execute to an idea with the best the best information that you have at hand, right? So and this probably applies to anything, even for like Space United. Now I'm getting into web design and media, social media. I have no idea how to do many of that things. But I found it that with doing it and failing, I just learned another way of how not to do it. And it just gets me closer to a final result. So I think it's important to make decisions with the information that you have at hand, and knowing that sometimes you are not going to have all the answers to make that decision.
Yeah, I think like very connected to what Camilo just said, the most powerful advice that I got is something very simple, is you are ready. So when I wanted to transition from being a researcher to being a professor, because I did not have a path that had seen other people walking in front of me, I always was more critical of, okay, what if I need to do more to walk on this path? What if I'm not ready? So when I talked to mentors, and that's what like Melinda also said, like being mentored is such a powerful thing, because when I talked to those mentors, everybody was like, no, you are ready to be a professor. We have not seen anybody more ready. How can you be more ready, right? So I think that was the most impactful advice, where people I was working with for 5 years, for 6 years, they were able to understand me at such a different level than I could, because I had my own reservations. I was more critical of myself. So like just sometimes feeling that, yes, you are ready to take on that ship and really make that jump is the most impactful advice I have got.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all the panelists for your wisdom and allowing us to really dive into your story and see how you guys developed over the years and through your careers. I would like to also note that we will also be having a panel series next week, so please look forward to that. And with that, thank you all so much for your time, and thank you everyone for being here today. And we will leave everyone with that, with the good advice. Thank you all for being here for our first panel series, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.